Hi. This demonstration is going to go into a little more depth into what you need to do to create your video edited sequence for this week's exercise. First, I've already got my project started. I've created a new project. It's called Megan's Demo-1, and I can see that down here in my lower left-hand panel. This is the panel where we're going to see what's called the bin, where we keep our clips, our content or assets that we might want to use in our video. So if you don't see project : and the name of the project that you created, you can find that in the window menu by scrolling down to projects and finding your project on the list here. Occasionally, I've gotten my screen sort of like jumbled, not set up in the usual way, and this happens pretty easily. So if you're missing something, you're going to find it in the window panel, and your project should be here if you've got it open. All right, so the first thing I need to do is import some content, and I've got a couple ways. Command-I. I can also go to the File menu and choose Import, or I can simply double-click in the bin area here. So you can see here right under my cursor, it says Import Media to Start. I'm going to double-click on that. What that's going to do is open up a Finder window where I can go out and navigate to the content that I have. This content should be in the folder that you created for this project, the sort of home of this project. So I'm in my folder that says Exercise Water Clips, and I have here actually my demo project file is here and all of my MP4s, and I have a folder with the music. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to pick, let's see, I'll pick 4 of these that I want to work with and click Import. To select multiples, don't forget that you can use Command on the Mac. You can use Shift. You can do these one at a time, but if you've got them all together here in one folder, it's really easy to select all the pieces that you need. All right, when I select Import, I can see here that I have these files in a list. If you're not seeing a list, of course, you might be in icon view. I find the list view is really nice because it gives me some information. So I like to use that. And I can see, for one, the duration of my clips. They range from about, what do we have, 15 seconds up to 32 seconds for the longest one that I selected. If I scroll over here to the right, I can also see the resolution and information about the audio and its compression. All of my video clips here are the same resolution, but one thing to keep in mind is that the first clip that you use will define the sort of the ratio, the size ratio, and the resolution of your timeline. So, and the sequence in that timeline. So in this case, they're all the same, but if they are different, be thoughtful about which one you place first, because that will set the standard for everything else. Okay, I'm going to shrink this back down so I've got plenty of timeline space over here. To get started in editing this, I want to choose one of these clips to lead off my timeline, what's going to be in my sequence. And this is like the first clip that's going to be part of my edited sequence. And I'll start with the bird. I'm going to double click on the little icon next to the bird, and that's going to open it up in my source editing window. All right, that's up here on the left, or panel. Okay, we've already seen some videos about how to navigate the specific panels and use those panels. So I've got this video here. I like to use the keyboard shortcuts as I'm working, so I can click my space bar to play, and that video will play in that frame. I can see at the bottom this blue box moving across my timeline here. That blue box moving along here is my control. I can scrub back and forth and find an exact point if I want to clip it right when the bird turns its head or makes a certain move. So keyboard or spacebar to start, spacebar to stop. And I can move along, or I can use my cursor, my mouse, and drag it to find just the right point. The other thing that I have on the keyboard that I use is the in and the out markers. in and out markers are sort of like the start and the end. In is when I'm going to come into this clip and it's going to start. Out is when it's going to end. And probably go on to another clip or a title screen or something. So on the keyboard, that's I and O. I'm going to back this up here. Let's just start like the very beginning of this video. So I'm going to put the playhead, that's what this blue box is called, the playhead, in the place where I want the video to start. And I am going to press I on my keyboard. That marked the in. I can drag my playhead, or I can use the space bar to play. And while it's playing, I can hit O on the keyboard to mark the out. You'll notice here that I now have a little gray bar with a blue line at each end. That marks the specific piece of this clip that I am going to use. Now, to add this to my timeline, the easiest thing to do is to click on the image and drag it down to your timeline and let go. The timeline is at the bottom right. And yeah, when I drag that in there, I'm going to start to see all the different tracks that are set up automatically. I've got 3 video tracks and 3 audio tracks. And the little segment of video that I've included here, it's not very long. What do I have here? Oh, okay, I've got about 2 seconds worth of video so far. 2 seconds of this bird right at the beginning here. It's showing me the video on the V1 track and the audio on the A1 track. Note that these videos that I'm providing actually don't really have any audio. They simply have audio tracks because those weren't eliminated from their original files. We could delete those, but we don't need to. They're just going to be silent audio. I do want to mention that you've got this zoom scroll at the bottom here. This is a way to scroll down your timeline, but by changing the length of this gray bar, I can change how many seconds of time are visible in my timeline, and therefore make it like I can sort of zoom in on my timeline. So I'm going to set this so I have about 30 seconds visible here. I won't try to make my video shorter than 30 seconds. All right, and now I'm ready for the next piece. I'm going to take my, let's see, we'll go to the waterfall. So double click on the waterfall. It opens up here in my source editing. I can hit play by hitting the space bar. I'm going to choose an in. Give it a few seconds. I'll choose an out and hit the space bar to stop. Notice right here in this source editing window or panel, it's telling me after I put my in and my out, it tells me how long my clip is. So in case you sort of like have a target, like you think you need about 5 seconds of something, you can check here that you have about the amount of time that you need. Oftentimes we're clipping our video based on what's happening in the video. So in the case of the bird, maybe I'm looking for it to make a certain move or turn its head or do something, and I know I want it to clip there. In something like this waterfall, it's kind of like a monotonous video. It's just waterfalling, right? Like it's how much time do I want that to be in my video? And so I'm going to go with this 4 seconds, but if I knew I needed to fill a certain amount of time, I could target that. And in fact, I can manually grab the end of this to get just the right amount of time. Okay. So again, I'm going to click on my image, drag it down to my timeline, and I want to drag it into the same video track and let it snap to my last clip. That'll guarantee that I don't have any black screen between the 2 clips. All right, and just at a glance, I feel like that looks like it's long. Note that once it's in your timeline, you can also edit the length of that clip again by rolling over the end of the clip, and you'll see that little red bracket appear, and I can drag it to adjust the overall time. Okay, let's take another one. I'm going to double click on my drink. I will play that and see. Okay, so already I know I want it to start, my clip to start right before the water comes pouring into the glass. So I'm just going to find the exact point before I see any water coming into either the glass or the reflection. I've placed the playhead and I'm going to hit I on the keyboard. Now I'm going to let it play and use O to mark the out point. I'm going to let this one play out till the glass is completely full. Okay, and then we'll add that to our timeline. Now, just because I've already used one of my video clips in the bin doesn't mean I can't use it again. I can clip other pieces from an existing video clip. So maybe I want to go back to that waterfall and I want to choose a different moment in that video. I'm going to take the playhead to where I want my start point to be, click I, add a few seconds of waterfall, click O on the keyboard, spacebar to stop, and now I can drag that clip in. And I just keep going at this, sort of adding in all the pieces that I want. So I've selected a portion of this video clip. I add it to my timeline. I'm going to go back to the bird. And I want to pick up right where the bird left off last time. So I'm going to put that playhead right at the point where I ended my last clip. Choose I on the keyboard. And then choose my out point by clicking O. Remember that if I want to adjust this, maybe I really wanted this to end with the bird looking at us. I'm going to adjust this by sliding that out point on that timeline. And then I bring it down and I place it in my timeline panel. Now, many of these clips have audio, and these audio tracks are sort of spread out depending on how the original creator placed them in their editing. I can move these. So if I want to drag each one of these audio blocks up to that audio 1 track, I can do that. That leaves me with audio 2 and audio 3, A2 and A3 open so that I can add my own audio. Now, I don't have any audio in my bin yet. So next step is I need to bring in that audio. I want to import that. So I'm going to do Command or Control I, or I can use File Import. And I'm going to go find the music that I want. I've provided 2 in the files for this exercise. These are basically background music. Now, the editing process for audio is essentially the same as for video. I'm going to double click on the icon. I'm going to see it appear here in my source window. Now, obviously, audio looks different. What I'm seeing here are sound waves identified graphically so that we can see what this looks like. If I click play, I'm going to hear that. I'm going to go ahead and move my playhead and find the point where I want this to start. Now, I know from looking over here at my sort of preview that I have a total duration of 26 seconds and 17 hundredths. So I needed probably at least 27 seconds of audio to, if I want the soundtrack to run through the whole length of my video. So I'm going to pick an in point. I'm looking at this sound wave. I see this sort of active moment here where there's a big change in the wave, and I'm going to try to incorporate that. If I choose an out point, I can see here now that I have 26 seconds just over 26 seconds. I think I need maybe just a little bit more than that. So we'll go for 29. I'm going to slide it a little bit. There we go. So now I've got, let's see, we're going to take this back to the beginning of my in point, and I'm just going to listen to it so I know what I've got. Okay. I'll listen to that full clip, and if it sounds good, I'm going to go ahead and drag it onto my timeline. Now, if you click in the sound wave and try to drag it on here, it kind of doesn't do anything. Right at the bottom underneath the sound wave is a little icon that if I roll over, it says drag audio only. That's going to be your easiest way to get this in there. I roll over that and I drag it down here onto my timeline. And I want this to start right at the beginning with my first clip. So I'm going to make sure it snaps to the very beginning, the 0 mark on my timeline. It doesn't really matter if you put it in A2 or A3. It's just going to sit below your video on the track. All right, so I will preview this. I can play my clip here. Now, what you'll notice is that there's like that big moment in the audio that happens, and it kind of happens not in line with what's going on in my images. If I want to change that, if I want to adjust the placement of the video or the placement of the audio, I can do that now. I might start by adjusting my audio, and I'm going to delete the audio I've put in here and move my whole selected piece of audio a little bit so that I end up with my my big crescendo moment a little bit later. I'm going to drag that back into my timeline. And I'm going to concentrate on when that moment happens. So I'm using the playhead in my timeline to scrub the point where I think that's going to start. And I'm going to play it and I'm going to listen. So there's that pause in there and then that new start. So let's try that one more time. Okay. Let's make this adjustment a little different. I'm going to adjust this the other way. All right. So right when that quiet moment happens, and I can actually sort of see it here in the graphic that represents the sound wave. Right when that moment happens, I want it to switch to the sprinkler, right? Like I want it maybe to change videos. So something happens at the crescendo. So I'm just going to slide my audio down a little bit. There are lots of different ways to adjust this. I'm going to start just by adjusting my audio. So right at the point when that new sound starts after the quietness, I want it to jump to that next video. So I am actually going to go up to my video track and adjust the end of one clip and the beginning of the next clip so that they align with that moment. Now let's play through a few minutes here, a few seconds really. Right. So now that quietness happens shortly after the cup, as the waterfall is coming in, and then there's a quietness, and then boom, the sprinkler and the crescendo and the music happen together. All right, and then I've allowed about 3 seconds worth of audio at the end. I do need to make sure that I don't have any blank spaces, so I'm going to stretch this audio a little bit at the beginning so it goes right back to 0. I can double check that I don't have any gaps between my video clips. I have audio that stretches the full length and just beyond so that my screen will go black before the audio ends. And I'm ready to output this. So before you go any further, make sure that you do file save, right? You've already given this project a name, so we don't need to do a save as or save a copy. Just a simple save. Make sure you've captured what you've just done. And then you'll want to proceed to the next video tutorial linked in Blackboard to learn how to export this to a file that other people can watch.